We're joined now by Jim Gamble, former head of the Child Exploitation and Online Protection Centre. Jim, thanks for joining us this morning. It's extraordinary for all of us to hear that this law is there, it's ready and waiting, but it hasn't been implemented. The Ministry of Justice said sexual communication with a child is abhorrent, which is why the government legislated to make it a specific offence. We remain committed to commencing this law as soon as possible. That's exactly what they said this time last year. So it's now 2 years that they haven't actually managed to implement this law. What on earth is going on?
Well, I don't know, but I'm prepared to pay for their taxi from their office over to the House of Parliament, which is all they have to do to go and sign the commencement order to allow this to become law. So I think what we have is more government rhetoric, but the reality of their commitment, the reality isn't there, because it is as simple as that. It's as simple as signing a commencement order. So what we have is we have a situation where police are left without the tools to interdict this activity earlier. So they will say there are laws about inciting a child to become involved in sexual activity. There are laws on grooming, but they are complex.
We have heard, haven't we, sorry, Jim, from Chief Constable Simon Bailey of the National Police Chiefs Council saying that police forces just cannot cope with the huge rise in these reports. Increase in child abuse reports are up 80% in 3 years. He's saying that offenders who viewed online child abuse images should be placed on a sex offenders register, cautioned and managed in the community undergoing rehabilitation. He's saying that he knows that his comments are going to cause nervousness and draw headlines.
Well, I think his comments are aimed at the wrong people. That's the anxious parent and carer who's out there. His comments should be to government demanding greater resource. So simply saying there are too many and too few police isn't good enough. Saying we're arresting 400 a month, that's less than 10 per police force. So what we need is the tools to do the job. So government need to, get in that taxi and sign that commencement order, but they also need to invest in policing and invest in better sex offender management.
So why are they doing then? Are they forgotten it's in the in-tray? Are they, just thinking we've got bigger fish to fry at the moment? We've got other... I mean, what's going on?
Well, what they did say in one of the statements of the House was that they have other justice priorities when they were pressed. I don't know what those could possibly be. If you want to be cynical and look at this, what I would say is government are great with rhetoric when there's a requirement for a headline. Not 2 weeks ago I was on this programme when they talked about the 40 million, a drop in the bucket, that they were putting into child sexual exploitation, and all of this is linked. But that was actually over 3 years, and it was spread so thin across so many organisations. All it did was buy a headline. So if we want the reality, sign this, give police better tools, because this law will allow police to interdict that activity earlier.
So it's already in place in Scotland, been enacted in Scotland. There have been 1,500 prosecutions since the law came in about 6 years ago. Do we know if those prosecutions have led to convictions? Do we know if it's had a success?
My understanding is that a large number of them are now recorded crimes and a large number have led, and what they've definitely led to, because of the investigation, is the interdiction of that activity with the child.
Right, so that's stopped because at the very least they're under investigation.
Correct.
It seems like it seems like simply joining the dots. It seems like they're saying, like you say, and they have done for the last 2 years since it's been, they're saying, yeah, we're absolutely committed to this. An extraordinary thing that nobody can turn around and say why they haven't, as you say, just got in the taxi and gone and signed this order.
No. And as you say, they said exactly the same thing last year. This order, the statute actually went through in 2015.
Yeah.
It's been sitting there waiting for 2 years. So it's not good enough. And Theresa May herself, actually, when this came in, welcomed the NSPCC's action and said they were committed to closing any gaps that existed in the law. So the message to Theresa May is, you were Home Secretary at the time, you're now Prime Minister, there's no one with more authority than you, so make a phone call.
Yeah.
Let's get the taxi, let's sign it off, and let's invest in policing. Simon is right. 80% increase in the last number of years in child abuse investigations. And actually, if you look at it, 32,000 fewer police resources amongst police staff and officers. So the maths don't add up. Yeah. But let's not abdicate. Let's, declare war on those people that represent a threat to our children and invest in it. Because if this was counter-terrorism, we'd be throwing resources at it. We wouldn't be having this conversation.